And now we have Alan Atkisson. Alan is the author of the book entitled Believing Cassandra. He is an artist who has a wonderful sense of heart. Alan describes himself as a consultant, as a writer, and as a traveling minstrel. Here's Alan.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mike Custodia. I work with the National Center for Appropriate Technology. We're very pleased to be one of the organizational sponsors of the Spirit, Commerce, and Sustainability Conference. Sustainability issues are central to our mission at NCAT, as we call it, and much of our work is dedicated to disseminating information about them. But on a more personal level, as Citizen Mike, these issues matter to me here in my home in Missoula. I believe that commitment to place is fundamental to any sustainability effort. And I've also been very fortunate to work with a wonderful group of people on this conference. We've come from all backgrounds, yet still managed to arrive at our decisions as a result of genuine consensus. I've learned much in the process, and for that, I thank you all. But I'm here to talk about hope, sustainability, and Alan Atkisson. So often when we talk about social and environmental issues, the cloud of despair billows up and soon settles over us. Just in the last week or so, I've learned that we've lost another primate in West Africa, and that the hole in the ozone is far bigger than anyone imagined. Not too long ago, when I was a grad student at the University of Montana's Environmental Studies program, there were many times when I'd leave a seminar in a near catatonic state. Indeed, when we thumb through the catalog of eco-bummers, be they climate change, biodiversity loss, pollution, our burgeoning global population, our staggering rates of consumption, and when we consider the entrenched dysfunctional systems and the yawning chasm of wealth and power that undergird it all, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. So what can I do about that? Even if I wanted to, where do I enter this? For many, it's easier not to at all, and instead focus on the here and now, our jobs, our families, the Grizzlies' next home game, or the coming ski season. Still, what I know nags me, and most of all, I want to believe there's hope for a better world despite all the evidence to the contrary. And I know I'm not alone. The whole sustainability movement was born of similar hopes. Last night, we heard much about the idea of sustainability saying yes. While recognizing there's still much in our world that we need to say no to, and commending those who do that difficult work, we must embrace something. So we say yes. Yes to treating our planet as if we were actually living here. Yes to dignified livelihoods that sustain and can be sustained. Yes to small d democratic society that prides itself on a sense of justice. Yes. And although I'm not sure it's my nature, I'm always open to the idea of optimism. That's why it's so important to have people like Alan Atkisson. Alan's work is a much needed message of hope, not a blind hope, but a hope rooted in a real world rich in possibilities. In his book, Believing Cassandra, an optimist looks at a pessimist world, Atkisson retells a story from Greek mythology of Cassandra, a beautiful young woman blessed with the gift of prophecy, yet cursed with the disbelief of all those she encountered. The analogy with our current situation is apt. We've been warned about the dangers ahead given our current course, though most of us do little about it. Atkisson believes our modern Cassandras, and he sees a challenge in reinventing our world to prove them wrong, to avert what we know is coming. To do that, we need a new paradigm, and for Atkisson, sustainability offers it. To bring about that shift, and to do it quickly, as he urges, requires not only the will to do it, but also our imagination and intelligence. It is most of all a creative and life-affirming endeavor. I know Wendell Berry was quoted last night, but I can't resist my favorite line from his poem Manifesto, where he counsels us to be joyful, though we've considered all the facts. Well, one joyful fact is that the move towards sustainability mindset is already underway. The fact that there are 200 people in this room, along with the numerous examples of sustainability in action that we've discussed today in our breakout session, is ample evidence of that. Alan's mission, then, is to help speed along the process. So how does he do that? Well, here's the rundown on Alan's distinguished career. He's been writing and consulting on sustainability issues for a dozen years. He's the former executive editor of In Context, the pioneering journal of sustainable cultures. He was a co-founder of Sustainable Seattle, a group which early on realized the value of sustainability indicators. Alan is the founder and president of Atkisson and Associates, a consulting firm whose mission is to accelerate change towards sustainability in business, government, and public life. His clients range from small communities and nonprofits to large cities and Fortune 500 companies. Alan is a senior fellow and the former executive director of Redefining Progress, an independent policy institute. He is the director of arts and culture for the Sustainability Institute in Vermont. He is a member of the International Consultative Group on Sustainable Development Indicators. As I've mentioned earlier, he's the author of Believing Cassandra. Our guest last night, Paul Hawken, called his friend Atkisson the freshest and wisest voice to emerge from the sustainability movement in many years. Believing Cassandra, Hawken said, renews our sense of the possible and expands the dimensions of our collective intelligence, transforming our sense of the future from a curse into a blessing. You may have noticed a guitar on the stage. Atkisson is also a musician and a songwriter, and his latest album, Believing Cassandra, was released jointly with his book by Chelsea Green Publishing and Rain City Records in the fall of 1999. So to bring this to a close, I'll quote another one of his friends and perhaps a person who launched him on his way, Danella Meadows. She's a farmer, a writer, a scientist, and the director of the Sustainability Institute. 20-odd years ago, she was the co-author of the influential Limits of Growth, a book Alan claims had a pivotal effect on him. Writing recently about Alan, she tells us, everywhere Alan goes, he sings. He wards off doom and gloom with his head as a writer and a consultant, and with his heart as a minstrel and a composer. More than once, I've seen him sum up a conference on endocrine disruptors or sustainability indicators with a rollicking ditty that he wrote overnight that gets the point across much better than a scientific report. So friends, neighbors, guests, here to engage our heads and our hearts, please welcome Alan Atkisson.
Boy, you guys know how to do introductions around here. Is this all right? You can hear me all right? Yeah. Oh, well, you hear me better if I actually had the microphone on the outside. Otherwise, you'll hear my heartbeat. Well, I've got to say first what a tremendous pleasure it is to be in Montana for the first time since I was 2 years old, basically. And I'm told by my parents that when I first saw the mountains, I screamed, "Look, Mommy, Daddy, mountains." And that was like my first declarative sentence of some sort. I pretty much did the same thing when I went to Glacier over the weekend. It's just such a beautiful place. This talk's going to be a bit different from what I usually give. Those of you who've seen me before, I'm going to do things a little bit differently because, this is a conference that has the word spirit in the title, right? So I assumed that meant that I could essentially, reveal my true colors. Let down the hair that I cut 6 months ago. And talk a bit from the heart about these issues. So let me start with a song. I live my life in widening circles that reach out across the world. And I may not complete this last one, but I give myself to it. I circle round God, round the primordial tower, and I've been circling for thousands of years, and I still don't know, am I a falcon, a storm, or a great song. The writer of those words is Rainier Maria Rilke, a German poet from the 19th century, actually, turn of the century. Probably the greatest German poet. He's not as well known in America. Probably many of you knew that particular poem. Translated there by Joanna Macy and Anita Barrows. And I open with that because Rilke is someone I want to invoke a few times during the course of this talk. Rilke wrote that poem and about 85 others during a kind of white-hot moment in his life, or actually 3 white-hot moments. He is writing in these poems from the perspective of a monk in dialogue with the divine. And this was a man on fire. He wrote 29 poems in 28 days the first time, and he set those poems aside. 2 years later, this sort of fever came on him again. He wrote 30 poems in 28 days. And I may be getting these numbers a little off, but you get the idea. He did it in 3 chunks of white-hot inspirational time. And, you know, Rilke speaks to us, and speaks to me at least, and I think most people would encounter these words, out of the depths of our being, out of our very souls. And I'm going to try to talk about the soul tonight. It's not so easy. It's easier to sing about it than to talk about it, but I'm not going to get there till later in the talk. And the title of this talk was Setting the Stage for Action. That was a title that I think Mike gave to me. I like it. I like it a lot. But I'm going to talk a bit more about setting the soul for action, I think. And I'm going to talk about what it takes to try to make change in this world. At least from my experience, watching a lot of people do it, and try to do it, and trying to do it myself, and knowing that everybody in this room is trying to do it. What does it take to make change in this world? I'm also going to go a bit slower than I usually go. I'm actually going to take pauses probably from time to time. This is not my usual rap. Some years ago at Redefining Progress, I had this idea to do an indicator of speed. And we did the calculations. We never published this. It still should be published. I wanted to know how fast the average person traveled in their life today compared to 100 years ago. When you total it all up, I mean the amount of the walking that you do, the driving from place to place, the occasional plane flight, or hitchhiking the truck, or whatever it is that you do. How fast are you going? I mean, if you translated all that motion in a year to like a conveyor belt that was moving along at a constant speed, what would that be? Right? And we did the calculations, and the numbers are not actually impressive when you hear the numbers. 1900, the average speed of an American constant speed was 0.1 mile per hour. Because you're sleeping sometimes, right? By the 1990s, the decade of 19, that number had become 1 mile per hour. Now that's a factor of 10 increase. And that's just the average. And this is also a society that's much more striding than it was 100 years ago. So there are some people, like me, whose personal speed indicator is a lot faster than that. I think I'm up in the 20 to 25 mile per hour range. I mean, if my real speed was translated into a physical expression of every moment, you'd see the wind in my hair like this, from all those 550 mile an hour plane flights. So I want to try and slow down a bit tonight. I want to talk about slowing down. I'm going to try to talk about slowing down in order to speed up. The last chapter of my book is called Accelerate to Survive. And it's a very, in some ways, controversial, non-heterodox, or heterodox kind of opinion about sustainability, where the case that I'm trying to make is that in order to make sustainability happen, we have to accelerate dramatically the amount of innovation that we're pumping into our economies, into our societies, into our policy envelopes. We have to do almost everything new and different. Thank goodness we have people who are giving us some ideas about how to do that, like Paul, like Janine here, the wonderful book Biomimicry, which is a great model for how to do things differently. And we've got to do it fast, but we're already moving so fast that it's hard to stop enough to slow down enough to make changes. So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about what it means to be a change agent. Change agent is a technical term from communications theory, but you know what I'm talking about. Somebody whose purpose in the world or in their job or in some particular field is to make change happen. Everybody in this room, I will attest, is a change agent for some part of their life. So I'm going to run by you 7 things that a change agent needs in order to do a good job. And so these are new, they're not new ideas, but this is a new formulation of some stuff I've been thinking about. I'll run them down for you. Knowledge of conditions, understanding of systems, expertise and innovation, fearless self-awareness, strong assessment skills, the ability to be an artist, and lastly, growing your soul. Growing your soul. So let me get right into it. Knowledge of conditions. You know, Mike already talked about this. And, you know, one of the hardest things about being in this work, being in the environmental field, being a sustainability person, being someone who's willing to try to take on the behemoth of civilization and stop it, distract, and redirect it, is simply the burden of having to be knowledgeable about current trends. It's not an easy thing we're asking people to do. I want to talk a lot more about that over time. Being knowledgeable about trends is the first step, just knowing where we are and where we're going. You know, I was just recently on a book tour in Australia, and I got 2 emails during the course of the tour that were amazing. On the same day, I got 2 amazing emails. First was one that was a story about the North Pole melting. I'm sure you all heard about this, right? Russian icebreaker shows up at the North Pole with scientists and tourists on board. Open water. It's like a lake, right? And they're perplexed. And this is a rather harrowing, fact that the North Pole is melting. Kind of don't know quite what to do about that. But on the same day, I got another email, which had to do with solar power, and it turned out that this year the world has passed the 1 billion watt mark in installed solar panels. We're making 1 billion watts of solar energy, clean solar energy, 1 billion watts. It took us 27 years to make that first 1 billion watts worth of solar energy capacity, and the estimates are, based on current growth rates, the next 1 billion watts will take 4 years. From 27 years to 4 years. So we are in this incredible race against time, where on the one hand, the North Pole is melting, driven by exponential growth in carbon dioxide emissions and the machinery that pumps it out. On the other hand, new energy technologies are growing exponentially, very rapidly, in the same rates that the computer technologies were growing in the 80s and early 90s. So who's going to win? Who's going to win? This is the great race. I do a lot of work on indicators, and I do work on indicators because as I was talking to Greg Oliver here, our dialogue helped me to formulate why I do that in a way that I haven't quite done it before. Doing indicators or measures of what's happening in the world are really just one of many ways to try to, in some ways, lure people, coax them into a relationship with awareness, to sort of give them a window into knowing what's happening. And some people relate really well to charts and graphs. Other people relate to other things. But the key thing is to be willing to have that relationship with the knowledge of what's happening. To be willing to have that relationship. It's hard work, and I'll say more about that, but just being willing to have it. And to understand trends like exponential growth. I throw that phrase out, exponential, what does that mean? It means when things grow at, 2% per year, it means they're going to double in 35 years. That's what it means. So a 2% growth rate may sound like nothing, but if you're talking about population, it means you'll have twice as many people in 35 years. Now, to get that kind of idea across is hard. So I resort to all kinds of ways of trying to get ideas across, like singing. So here's a song about exponential growth. Here's a song that's meant to warn you, warring lights in your above. It's a little complicated, but you really need to know. There's a dangerous phenomenon. I swear to you and oath that there's trouble in this world from all the exponential growth. Can you sing that? Exponential growth. Oh, exponential growth. You can run, but you can't hide from all the exponential growth. Oh, exponential growth. Look out for exponential growth. Yes, it's creeping up behind you. Yes, it's exponential growth. 2% per year. They sound like things are going slopes, but that's really very fast, as my example soon will show. There's 6 billion people now. There would be 12 if on it goes in just 35 more years because of exponential growth. That's very good. Exponential growth. Oh, exponential growth. You can run, but you can't hide from all the exponential growth. Oh, exponential growth. Look out for exponential growth. Yes, it's creeping up behind you. Yes, it's... Thank you. If I sing along on one... Oh, hold it. You need my mic. We're not done with the song yet, folks. If I sing along on one note and I slowly raise the pitch, I can demonstrate the process. Note just when I make a switch, seems like nothing much is happening. It's just a little rise, but the changes come much faster, and you're suddenly up to your eyes. Oh, exponential growth. You can run, but you can't hide from all the exponential growth. Oh, exponential growth. Look out for exponential growth. Yes, it's creeping up behind you. Yes, it's exponential growth. Thank you. Reinforce the message of the song I had composed. Here's another demonstration of just why this is the most subtle danger that we face. If we just let society cope, we'll go faster, 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 thanks to exponential growth. Exponential growth. Oh, exponential growth. Look around, but you can have all the exponential growth. Exponential growth. Yes, thank you. Oh, yeah. Amazing things desperation will drive you to in your attempt to get over certain messages to people. Okay, so that was the first thing, step one. That was awareness of trends. That's all I'll say about that tonight. The second thing on my list was, see how new this is? Understanding of systems. Understanding of systems, because everything is a system. Everything you see in the world around you is part of the system. Your body is a system, right? Food comes in, stuff happens to the food. Well, let's not go where carbon dioxide gets emitted because we draw stuff out of the earth as fossil fuel. This is fossilized dinosaur goo, essentially, and then we combust it with oxygen in order to make ourselves get from here to 7-Eleven and back. And that's all part of a system. Stuff's flowing through the system. Please stay where I put it. Systems is a well. I mean, you can spend 2 years at Massachusetts Institute of Technology getting a master's in system dynamics, or you can do as I suggest you do in the next 7 minutes, which I'm going to give you the equivalent of a master's degree in systems in 7 minutes. Is that all right? Okay. First, I want you to imagine that you're at the zoo. Okay? Imagine you're at the zoo. We're not talking abstractions here. We're talking about animals. I just met this bobcat outside. Did anybody else see the bobcat? High point of my time in Montana. Face-to-face encounter with a deep fang, deep clawed bobcat. Whoa. Anyway, so imagine you're at the zoo, and these are all animals. So I'm going to teach you the animals in the system zoo. Ready? And these are all concepts. The first two are sources and sinks. Now, sources are where things come from, and sinks are where things go. Sources are things like oil wells, and sinks are the atmosphere in which carbon dioxide ends up. All right, I want you to say these words with me. Ready? Sources and sinks. Sources and sinks. Now, this is onomatopoetic English, right? These words sound like what they are. So a source and a sink. You got it? It's in your body. This is all about learning theory. You'll get this, I promise. Okay. Next we have stocks and flows. Ready? Stocks and flows. Okay, after it comes out of the source, it passes through flows to various stocks and keeps going. Stocks are where things stop along the way, like your belly. And flows are where things go. Okay, stocks and flows. Then we have three concepts that have to do with the nature of time in systems, because systems are all about time, change over time. So we have oscillations, delays, and rates of change. Ready? Oscillations, delays, and rates of change. They sound like what they mean. Oscillations are like Democrat, Republican, right? Delays are when you make CFCs today and they don't cause problems for 15 years. You don't find out about that for 20 years after that. Right? That's a delay in the system. And rates of change are these exponential growth rates I was talking about earlier. Okay? So then we have a thing called nonlinear effects. Nonlinear effects. Ready? Nonlinear effects. Your tongue twists over, right? Nonlinear effects like Democrat, Republican, nadir. Normal oscillations of the system break down on occasion. Okay. And then lastly, we have feedback loops. Say it with me. Feedback loops. Very critical thing. It's for men. Then we have the na-na-na-na-na. All right, so here's how this works. This is how you'll get the systems thing in your body, all right? First, we need a rhythm. All systems have a rhythm, right? Even yours. No matter what your, personal feelings with regard to music. All right. Now, what I need is one of these from this half of the room, from the camera over. A 1, 2, 3, da-da-da-da-da. Can you handle that? A 1, 2, 3. Oh, they can handle it. You got the harder part over here. It goes like this. Na 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 na. Ready? Na 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 na. I heard good. All right. Now here's how it works. When I point at you, you do your part. A 1, a 2. A 1, 2, 3. Your system's crashing and you don't know why. You want to lay down your head and cry. Pull yourself together. There's no time to be blue. I'm going to tell you just what to do. Now go to the zoo. Na, 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 na. Take a walk around the zoo. Na, 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 na. Yeah, the system zoo can enlighten you. You got to listen to the animals. They'll talk to you. Let's run it down. We got your sources and sinks. You got to know how to think about the stocks and flows. That's where it stops and where it goes. Oscillations, delays, and rates of change. You got nonlinear effects that are really strange. You got signals running around in a feedback loop. That's the way it goes down in the system zoo. Na 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 na. The loop, loop. Na 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 na. Loop, loop. Yeah, your system's coming down and you don't know what to do. You got to take a walk around in the system zoo. Every system's idea of fun is to maintain equilibrium. But if you push it to grow too fast, you're going to hit, overshoot, and collapse. Okay, stop. I got to tell you a story. A man goes to fish. He fishes better than the rest, and he buys a few boats with the rewards of his success. Takes the money that he makes and buys a whole damn fleet till the ocean's full of boats, but there's no fish in the sea. Now what didn't this guy do? Go to the zoo, na 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 na. Get your butt down to the zoo, na 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 na. Yeah, the system zoo can enlighten you. You got to listen to the animals that talk. So you went with me. You got your sources and sinks. You got to know how to think about it. Stops, flows, where it stops and where it goes. Oscillations, delays, rates, and change. You got nonlinear effects that are really strange. You got signals running around in a feedback loop. That's the way it goes down in the system zoo. Yeah. Y'all are doing all right. So far, so good. Okay. Now in about another 7 minutes, I'm going to do a quick introduction to innovation diffusion theory. Because the next piece on the agenda for being a change agent is to be knowledgeable about innovation theory. Why? Because you're a change agent. You're all about innovation, trying to pump new ideas into the system. So it really behooves you to know what happens when new ideas get pumped into a system. What works? What doesn't work? What are you actually about? What are the key strategic sort of leverage points that you need to know about in order to be an effective change agent? Now, all of this, of course, is in my book. This is chapter 9. However, it's also free on the web if you don't want to bother to, read the book. There's an article in Context magazine back in 1990 called The Innovation Diffusion Game. You can find it by searching that website. What I'm going to do is quickly tell you where a lot of my sense of hope comes from. And that's from this body of theory, which, by the way, was basically developed by studying what farmers do when they're experimenting with trying out new corn, for example, or what people in the Andes Mountains did, like how fast they would learn to boil their water to make it hygienic. Studying how these new ideas move through a civilization or a culture. gives us some really important insights. So imagine that you are part of a large amoeba. This is the amoeba of culture. You know, this is just one big, happy, single-celled organism that we're all part of here. And the interesting thing about single-celled organisms is that when they feed, they do so by sticking out this pseudopod thing, right? Remember that? And then they engulf the new bit of food. And then what happens is not that they pull the pseudopod back in with the new food. The entire amoeba sloshes up to where the amoeba, the amoeba pseudopod used to be. That's how change happens in society just as well. Food is like ideas. New technologies, new ways of doing things. The Gaia hypothesis, solar energy, tax shifting, hypercarbs. These are all new ideas. Basically, sustainability is all about new ideas. Everything about it is about new ideas. And that doesn't mean that these are ideas that didn't exist already. Some of them are old ideas, like organic farming, that have to be reintroduced as a new idea to a system that seems like it's non-mainstream anymore. So understanding that what this means is the place to be if you're interested in change is out here on the edge. That's a scary place to be. There are actually gradations of where you can be. You can be the person out here who's sticking their neck out, and you're Einstein, or you're Wes Jackson. You're somebody who's trying to bring new ideas into this system. Or you can be the person who's trying to translate them to the rest of the world. Or you can be the person who's like in a government agency and sneakily bringing in some consultant who's a friend of yours who actually has been studying with Wes Jackson. And you sort of mastermind together how you're going to introduce these ideas in a way that don't scare everybody. That's the process of change. It looks like this. When you put that amoeba under the microscope, I've done this myself with my own microscope. And looks like that. So you got the innovator here, right? You got your Einsteins and your Amory Lovinses right here, and they're always considered like a little bit ahead of everybody else. Like you don't quite understand. Einstein says relativity theory equals mc squared, general theory of whatever. I'll go Amory Lovins says 7 ideas in a sentence, and I don't know about you, but he leaves me like panting. The guy he's way out there. So change agents come along. These are the people who translate these ideas to the rest of us. So, if Einstein is the innovator saying theory of relativity, change agent comes along and says, don't worry about the n equals mc squared thing, just think everything is relative. Innovators have a hard time with change agents because of that, because the change agent waters it down, changes it, Amory thinks, hypercar, 300 miles per gallon, new materials, fuel cell, gathering energy off the brakes, all the rest of it. And then along here, is Mr. Think here? He left. The Think is what you get. That's how change happens. And the transformers right here are like electrical transformers. Transformers are the ones who are the gatekeepers inside the organization who open the door to you and say, okay, come on and tell us about this new idea. And make sure you don't lose my job in the process. I'm not going to go too much more deeply into that, except to note that the harder job you have reactionaries over here. These are people who are against the new idea. I don't mean these are Rush Limbaugh. I mean these are anybody who's against the new idea because they think they might lose money or lose position or lose status or something. Maybe you. Sometimes being reactionary is a good thing, like stop the dam, right? Stop the nuclear power plant. Knowing how to be a good reactionary is also an important skill. And then the iconoclasts out here are the people who are critiquing the status quo. Right? So when the innovators and change are pulling society along this way, the iconoclasts are kicking it in the butt from behind. And here is the key strategic point. If you remember nothing else, please remember this. If you are a change agent, do not waste your time trying to change reactionaries. Do not waste your time trying to change reactionaries. And I bet many of you do. I do. Let the reactionaries do that. Slow somebody to earth first and let them go pound on them for a while. And then you can show up with a very reasonable alternative idea. Okay. The result is that. The result is that. It's the only chart I'm not going to use this too much more than that. But this is the innovation adoption curve. I talk about exponential growth. And I sang about exponential. Well, same problem with the solar panels. 27 years for the first billion, 4 years for the next billion. This is one way to have a rational left-brain source of hope, is to understand that change does happen faster than we've actually really comprehended. You know, who would have thought computers? Who would have thought internet? Who would have thought push-button telephones, for God's sake? Right? I grew up dialing, didn't you? All right, so change does happen. It happens faster than we understand. And that's just one place to have a source of hope, is to understand that if we, in fact, push enough innovation through the system fast enough, we will not save everything, because a lot of things are already lost. But we'll save a lot more than we might otherwise. It's all about acceleration. It's all about acceleration. Okay, that's innovation here. Primer version. Okay. Next step, fearless self-awareness. Ooh, no, before I do that, before I launch into fearless self-awareness, you know, not all innovation, no, I will launch this. I'm going to be very nonlinear about this. I was going to sing to you this song, but I'm going to sing this song later to you, okay? Yeah, I'll sing this later. Hey, all I want to say about fearless self-awareness is that it's hard. But here's what I mean by it. What I mean is that very often people think they are change agents and think they're good change agents, and they're not. And one of the hardest things about assessing what role you should play in that amoeba is figuring out what skill base you actually have. And you know, if you're somebody who likes to wear, you know, brightly colored pants with dreadlocks, my guess is you're not going to be doing corporate consulting. But it can be more subtle than that. It can just simply be that you may not understand why you've been beating your head against the wall trying to push this new idea and nobody's been paying attention. And it may just be that you're not the best messenger for that idea, and that's really hard to say. Been there. So sometimes the fearless self-awareness thing is, you know, what I really need to do is get somebody else who knows how to go talk to those guys and gals, but you know, too often they're guys, and get them to go do the talking. And I'll join her first and pound them from the back end. You know, but that's what fearless self-awareness in this context is what I'm talking about. And I won't say too much more about it because it is hard, but it's that being really honest with yourself and having friends you can trust who will tell you, you know, the reason nobody's listening to you is that when you walk into that meeting, you're a total pain in the ass. Happens, right? I have a friend in London who is brilliant. He's brilliant on climate change. And he's got this great way of thinking about, you know, bringing things into equilibrium for everybody. But he cannot go talk to the minister because the minister just thinks he's a total jerk. So he has his friend, my friend, Titus, who's very diplomatic and soft-spoken. He goes to those meetings. Okay? Fearless self-awareness. Strong assessment skills. That means being able to tell what works and what doesn't. And about that, I have a song. So not all innovations are good innovations, and sometimes innovations have unintended consequences. So here's a true story from the island of Borneo, 1953, World Health Organization, program to eradicate malaria. This is a true story. It's called The Parachuting Cats, and it goes like this. Once upon a time down in Borneo, there was a UN group called the WHO. They were doctors and bureaucrats from every nation working for the World Health Organization. The key word in there is health. Well, they said, we've come to take care of ya and cure this bad outbreak of malaria. It's carried by mosquitoes, we can plainly see. So they sprayed the whole countryside with DDT. Well, it seemed like a good idea at the time. And the people slept sound in their beds till their thatched roofs fell down on their heads. Well, how did that happen? There's a parasitic wasp whose eggs all hatch in these little caterpillars that feed on thatch. So the DDT killed all the wasps at once. And so the caterpillars ate the roofs for lunch. That's what you call a rude awakening. Well, the bureaucrats said, we can fix this up. We'll put a new tin roof on every hut. We know they're kind of ugly and they're noisy too, but it's something that the caterpillars just can't chew. Well, I had a point there. But the people were not happy still, for they all became desperately ill. You see, it happened like this. The lizard ate the bugs and got eaten by the cats who got a dose of DDT, and that was that. So the rats went on this frenzied rat rampage and caused outbreaks of typhoid and sylvatic plague. That's right, the plague brought to you by the World Health Organization. Doesn't that just make you sick? Well, the bureaucrats knew things were out of hand, so they gathered stray cats from every land. They gave them little parachutes like G.I. Joe, and they pushed them out of airplanes over Borneo. Remember, I did not make this up. To make sure that you don't get me wrong, here's the moral of my little song. The Earth's a very complicated place. It's a living web of delicate lace. So if someone tries to tear it up, say no, or we'll be parachuting cats into Borneo. Hey! Actually, I got that story from Amory Lovins. But he gave me the academic paper. It's a real story. The only thing I exaggerated there in its poetic license is there weren't actually individual parachutes. There were crates of cats being parachuted in. But yeah, so that's all real. Actually, and here's a little quote I promised I would tell you about this assessment skill thing, which also goes with the fearless self-awareness. I forget who wrote, I didn't write down who wrote this, but a professional is someone whose sense of responsibility does not require the stimulation of catastrophe. Think about that. All right, I just have two more to work through. The first one was be an artist. Anne Morrow Lindbergh said, "Why do progress and beauty have to be so opposed?" That was back in the 1930s. Margaret Mitchell in Gone with the Wind said, "What people don't seem to realize that there is just as much money to be made in the wreckage of a civilization as in the upbuilding of one." I need to talk a bit about art and aesthetics, because this is actually the key piece of sustainability that we don't talk enough about, is beauty. It's just pure and simple beauty. Did anybody here see the Sensation exhibit in New York City or read about it, this art exhibit that was sensational? Let me tell you a little bit of the story, because I think there's actually a conspiracy theory to be found here. We love those, right? Those of us in this work love conspiracy theories. Okay, so Charles Saatchi of Saatchi & Saatchi, one of the world's biggest advertising agencies in New York, identifies young British artists and puts shows together. And then they go off into New York and London and Australia. So the one most recently in New York was called Sensation, about a year plus ago, year and a half almost. And you may have read a bit about this. I mean, there was a painting of the Virgin Mary made with elephant dung. There was a portrait of a child murderer. There were some animals that were like chopped up into like bisected pieces in formaldehyde. It was gross. It's just gross. You know, Freddy Krueger couldn't have done a better job of putting on this art show. And it was made a big sort of free speech thing. But I got to thinking about this show, and beyond all the stuff around free speech and expression, I realized that the guy who was essentially crowning the young artist was the same guy who was making the messages in the consumer culture. Now, what does that mean? So so the artists that are being uplifted and shown to us as the people who are carrying the greatest messages around today's civilization are the ones whose work ignites in us a feeling of alienation and despair. And the art then does the same thing to us that a lot of the violent-prone media does, which is basically get us inured to horror. Basically it shuts us down from reacting to horror. This I think is a big problem. This is a big problem. And it takes being an artist to even see the problem. It takes being someone who is concerned with aesthetics, but also with interpreting the world to other people. Let me read you a couple of quotes from the latest Wendell Berry book, which is wonderful. It's called Life is a Miracle. This is his response to Edward O. Wilson's book, Consilience. E.O. Wilson was trying to merge everything into science, basically, and Wendell doesn't like that. I got to tell you my Wendell Berry story first, though. 10 years ago, I was a cheeky young editor in Context, and Wendell had written an essay called The Futility of Global Thinking, which was all about how thinking globally was really not doing anything, wasn't useful, and didn't really make change happen. And in fact, even the women's movement, he said, had only created abstraction. And I just had to rebut this. So I wrote an article called The Utility of Global Thinking, where I said there are global problems that have to be worked on at the global scale. And you're missing the point here, Wendell. I mean, what about the picture of the Earth from space, which got everybody excited about working in their local, patches for a better world? And he wrote me back, and he said, that picture of the Earth from space is not beautiful. Besides, it's only half the Earth. And it was created by the military-industrial complex, so, by definition, it's not beautiful. Anyway, so I wrote him back, and I said, well, Wendell, your problem is that I thought I really nailed him on this, because I said, what you're trying to say is that abstraction of any kind is like original sin or something. And I thought I had him, and he wrote back and said, thank you, that's exactly what I meant. So it's a question. I mean, for 10 years, Wendell's still farming that piece of earth in Kentucky, and I've gone from 30 to 40, running around doing indicators and a lot of abstraction. Is the world better? I don't know. I know that Wendell's piece of Kentucky is better, but I don't know. It's a question. Let me read you some things about what Wendell has to say about art. First, he says what art is. He said works of art communicate feeling directly from mind to mind. They communicate feeling directly from mind to mind, with no intent to explain why the impact occurs. And this defining quality of the art is the antithesis of science. One of my favorite old Broadway songwriters, known as the Lemon Drop Kid, said, words help you think your thoughts, and music helps you feel your feelings, but a song helps you feel a thought. Wendell goes on to write some really lovely stuff. He says, what can't be explained, he says. I don't think creatures can be explained. I don't think lives can be explained. What we know about creatures and lives must be pictured or told or sung or danced. And I don't think pictures or stories or songs or dances can be explained. The arts are indispensable precisely because they are so nearly antithetical to explanation. And here's, I don't know if I'll find this. Oh, yes, here it is. Here's the key thing. To see that they might say, okay, once we have cracked the crust of academic convention, we can see that science means knowing, and that art means doing. Science means knowing, art means doing. And that one is meaningless without the other. Why do change agents have to be artists? Because art is doing, and change is about doing. And understanding the beauty in the world, and the desire to recreate the beauty in the world. I have a picture book from 1961 that sits on my coffee table because it's so sort of haunting. This was articles from some magazine I don't even think exists anymore that have been called into a bound book. And basically it was like trying to understand why was America getting more and more ugly? Why were we purposefully creating ugliness? And trying to understand why we were able to do that, basically. And I'm going to jump to my last point about growing soul to talk about why I think it's possible. I spoke earlier about how hard it is to simply be aware of the stuff that we're talking about. How hard it is to be aware of climate change, species loss. How I found it hard simply to drive out of the boundaries of Glacier National Park back into, the beginnings of like sprawl. There's my contention, my growing passionate concern, you might say, is that we are creating a civilization that is not able to take on very intense emotion. It's not okay to be afraid. It's not okay to be despairing. It's not okay to be very sad. It's not okay to be really worried. This is a civilization that prescribes drugs for even any kind of protracted period of sadness or hyperactivity in a child, for example. I was a hyperactive kid. Thank God we had no Ritalin when I was a kid. So when I use the phrase soul and growing a soul, I don't necessarily mean, you may or may not have religious beliefs about soul, but I'm talking about the capacity for depth. There are three things that strike me about the soul. One is that the soul has an infinite attention span. Your sense of soul, the longer and deeper you dig into your being and your being in the world, the longer you can pay attention to things. And the less the pain bothers you, and the more the beauty thrills you. The soul has an infinite attention span. The second is that the soul has no fear of death. The soul has no fear of death. Now the body has a great fear of death. People who are dying, even in their last moments, even if they want to go peacefully, their bodies will rebel at the last moment. And they will try to cling on to something, whether they're drowning or anything else. But the soul has no fear of death. The soul can stare at what's going on in the world and say, well, some things are dying and that's greatly sad, but other things are living and things will change. The soul understands that even if a species goes today, yes, it's horrible, but millions of years from now there'll be other species. It's not to mean that we should let them go. It just means that the soul has that longer time scale. I just wrote a new song, actually, which I'm not going to sing to you tonight probably. It's called The Cockroach Culture Will Survive. It's about having that long-term view, and identifying with the fate of other species as well, and the promise of other species. The soul has no fear of death. And lastly, the soul has an unquenchable longing. I believe the soul, I know mine, has this unquenchable longing. And that's, of course, what sustainability is about. It's about this unquenchable longing that all of us, I think, I'm going to presume, in this room feel about wanting the world to be more beautiful, to be more natural, to be more like what we know it could be, to be more like how we wish it would be. And in fact, it's no different from the way our ancestors felt. Our ancestors, God bless them, they were trying to build a world they thought was a better world, and they were doing it for us. Nobody came into this world wanting to cause climate change. Nobody came into this world wanting to cause species to disappear. Most people, the vast majority of people, are not evil. The people that you have a hard time understanding why they don't agree with your green political beliefs, for them, you're as mysterious. You're absolutely as mysterious. Because they don't understand why it is you do not see that their desire to do economic development creates jobs, for example. So, to have a deeper sense of soul is to be able to tap into that unquenchable longing that will sustain you through a lot of hard work. It will allow you to have, and it's not just longing to do work, it's also longing to take time, longing to notice nature. Longing, let me tell you, I almost didn't want to come in after watching that bobcat walk by out here. I just want to follow that bobcat around. That's all I wanted to do. It had these incredible eyes and this little spiky stuff coming off the top of its ears. You don't see that very much, It was just marvelous. So I'm gonna close with a song. It's another Rilke song, but I'm gonna tell you a story about it first. This is actually I wrote this story up in my book actually, which you'll be amazed that I did when I tell you what the story is. I'm amazed. Well, okay, so. When you're some weird combination of a consultant, a writer, and a traveling troubadour, weird things happen to you. And one day I was visiting the incredible organic farm called Hermannsdorf outside Munich, which is run by the former sort of meat-packing magnate of Germany. He's sort of like, he was like the Spam guy for Germany. I mean, he had this huge company, and then one day his sons and daughters have been hammering him, coming back from their environmental science classes and hammering him. And he suddenly had an awakening, basically. He realized that what he was doing was like wrong. So he sold his company to Nestle. And he took the money and he created the world's most amazing organic farm. You just never saw a farm like this. I mean, it's incredible. It's huge. All the pigs are very happy. All the chickens are very happy. The cheeses vibrate with like light energy. I mean, And all over the darn place are these earthworks and art exhibits. I mean, he like spent millions of dollars on art commissioning, and some of it's really like depressing. Like there's one sort of Stonehenge for the extinct species, with like the names of all the gone species like written out on this tomb sort of like thing. You walk in, you go, oh God, you just want to weep, you know. And what he had me do this particular day, run around with Danella Meadows and Joan Davis, who's a chemist and sustainability person in Switzerland. He said, bring your guitar. You know, and so at every art installation he was showing us, he said, he insisted that I should sing a song from my ode, you know, that was appropriate to that place. You know, I mean, I was like having like past life flashbacks. Like, was I like a minstrel in a previous life? And this is like the Lord's manner, you know, making me sing for my supper. I thought I was going to talk about indicators, man. Anyway, so I got to the last stop on this tour, and it was a cow pasture, simple, ordinary cow pasture. And he says, "You must sing to the cows." I said, "Excuse me?" And his wife, his name's Carl Ludwig Schweitzer, his wife Dorothea, came up and said, yes. She didn't even say where, she just went like this. So I like pulled out one of my royalty songs, and I figured I'd sing them to the cows. Well, the cows were like looking at me kind of funny, kind of edging around, you know, like this. And I'm getting towards the end of the song, and a couple of them sort of, and they sort of calmed down, but a couple of them turned around and began emitting very large quantities of urine at the end of the song, you know, which was a little pretty disconcerting. I was trying to be very sort of like, you know, feelingful to these cows. And Dorothea comes up to me afterwards and pats me on the shoulder and says, "Don't worry, that's how they do applause." So, I've never done this before, but I'm going to sing you that song now. And I just hope you don't, like, you know, take a lesson. This is another one of these songs from Rilke's Book of Hours. And, this is the one song in that 85 or 86 poem cycle that Rilke did not write in one of those white-hot blinding furies. He actually wrote this as a love song to his lover, Lou Andreas Salome, who was 15 years older than he was, and married. Her husband sort of like said, "Okay, this is yours." And Lou Andreas Salome is an amazing person to run around. She was like the lover of Freud, Paul Ray, Nietzsche, and Rilke. Can you believe it? I mean, I think that's the real source of the revolution that happened at the turn of the century. Amazing. Amazing something was happening. Anyway, he wrote this for her, and then he realized later that it was, you know, that it belonged to this other song cycle. And so I just invite you to, you know, imagine. This is a song about unquenchable longing. This is a song about not giving up no matter what, and just being drawn toward that thing that you desire no matter what happens to you. And the words are, "Extinguish my eyes, I'll go on seeing. Seal up my ears, I'll go on hearing. Break off my arms, and I'll still take hold on you. With my heart, my hand will grab you like a fist. My heart will grab you like a fist." Extinguish my eyes, I'll go on seeing you. Seal up my ears, I'll go on hearing you. And even without feet, I could make my way to you. without your feet I could make my way to you. Even without a mouth I could swear your name. Break up my arms, I will take hold of you. Take hold with my heart as if it were a hand. Stop my heart, stop my heart, and my brain will start to and if you consume my brain with fire, consume my brain, consume my brain with fire. I will feel you burn in every drop of my blood. I will feel you burn with every drop of my blood. Even without feet, I could make my way to you. Even without a mouth, I could swear your name. Even without feet, I could make my way to you. Even without a mouth. From the sublime to the ridiculous. All right, you'll pick up the chorus in this really fast, all right? When you think about the future, the next 50 million years, it's hard not to give in to your darkest fears. But there's no need to worry, even if